Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Rob Stapleton in the building with another episode of that Rob Stapleton Effect. And I'm in the building. I wouldn't do it with my co-host in the building, my man, Mr. Marshall Brandon. What up, Marsh?
What's happening, brother?
Talk to me, man.
Man, I'm feeling good, man. Another day, you know what I'm saying?
Hey.
Episode 3.
Episode 3. We here already, man.
We knocking them out. We had the box on, and we knocking them out like a box.
I'm saying like this, big shout out to our sponsor, Blue Royale in the building.
Blue Royale.
Blue Royale holding us down, man. This is that tequila mixed with that rum, and it gets us right on this, man.
That's right.
Well, Marshall, let's get right to it, man. I remember there was a time, man, when the underground was the shit. Remember the underground?
Most definitely do.
You know, it's still a definition of what goes out. What does that mean when you say underground comic? You know what I mean? It was a time when you were underground. Sort of was like the Negro Leagues.
Right.
Sort of like before anybody knew who Willie Mays was, Satchel Paige, Jackie Robinson. Them dudes had to do it their own in order to jump up to be able to play at Yankee Stadium and get into the mainstream.
Yeah, had to have their own circuit.
Right, and it's sort of like what we doing now in this comedy game. It's pretty much the same shit. Like we came up through a time when it was the underground comedy game. You know what I mean?
Right.
But there are always people, there are gatekeepers in this thing that when they get a chance, they give other people a chance.
Right.
And there was a time where shit was festering to the point where it was ready to bubble, but people had nowhere to go. You know, there was a lot of talent in there, and they had nowhere to go. And then it came a time where the underground became mainstream, which was crazy.
Right.
And brings us right now, segues us to our guest that we have joining us today, ladies and gentlemen. Our guest is our man in the building who was the talent coordinator for the original Def Comedy Jam. There's a lot of fake Def Comedy Jams, but I'm talking about the original Def Comedy Jam.
We're talking about the one that people was like, oh, I gotta go home because
fuck that, Marshall. We talk about when there was only one HBO. You hear me?
Right.
When there was only one HBO, when you had the lockdown Friday to come home. Ladies and gentlemen, talent coordinator, one of the biggest names in this comedy game, ladies and gentlemen, my man, Mr. Bob Sumner, joining us in the building, ladies and gentlemen. Bob Sumner. In the building.
I always loved that name, talent coordinator. It was like, okay, we're gonna make you the talent coordinator. It was like a little show. Nobody knew what it was gonna be. Nobody knew. I mean, it's so much to that story. But I took that. I took it.
All right, so look, let's unpack this, man. We got a lot to unpack here, man. We got a lot to unpack there. Before that title came, talent coordinator, which that journey must have been crazy, man. But before we get to that, Bob, you come from Jersey, man, and you know, being from the New York side and the Jersey side, you saw things from that Jersey side that connected throughout the country. Tell us on your journey coming in from music, on the music side of things.
Well, it's interesting when people say I come from Jersey, but honestly speaking, as a toddler, all the way until I started playing like organized sports, I spent most of my days in Harlem. Okay. I had my grandmother had a pretty large family of sisters and like 3 brothers, and she had like maybe, I guess it was 6 or 7 sisters. And quite a few of them lived up on McCombs.
They don't get no more South Bronx than that.
But they lived in McCombs. They lived 116th Street, and then they moved up like the Jeffersons to the Esplanade Gardens. They all was up there. So I spent a lot of time there, especially on Sundays. We would do soul food, just like the movie and the television show. Then I had another aunt that was down the street on Lenox. And so a lot of my time was spent there. And that's where the whole entertainment bug came, mostly, because there was never a time that we went to Harlem that we didn't go to the world famous Apollo Theater. And I'm talking about on any given Wednesday evening or Sunday evening or catch the matinee, like however you wanted to look at it. I would catch the Motown Review, the James Brown Review. I always tell people I've seen David Ruffin 5-6 times. But along with that, I would see comedians from Jackie Moms Mabley to Pigmeat Markham, you know, Sad Sam. Like it was so many different, you know, comedians that I would see. And all of that came, the reason why we frequented the Apollo so much is because my uncle used to sing like in a group that's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame called the Platters. He was the lead singer. So my parents would always go over to the Apollo and they fell in love with it. But once my uncle started really going all over the world and stuff, and you know, they still enjoyed going there. And again, that comedy thing was going on with me as well as music. And then back in Jersey,
right,
you know, as years went by and I was on the radio at Seton Hall University, this, that, and the other, after, you know, college, you know, I was trying to like embark in the entertainment business for the most part. And I always went back to the comedy of it all at the Apollo. And also one of my high school schoolmates was trying to become a comedian. So it all came together. And that's when I even got the thing here. My first time doing a comedy show, I have this here. This was on February the 8th, 1985.
Dang.
Okay, so if anybody want to go back to 1985 and talk about who was who back then, come see me. We could talk about it.
Oh man, we gonna go we gonna go furious. We gonna unpack some shit on this. Now my getting my foot in this comedy game. I came up starting at a couple of the mainstream clubs. I would go down to Comic Strip, go down to a club called Rags to Riches, where everything was a lottery. I met a brother named Alonzo Jones and Derek Fox at Comic Strip, I believe. And these brothers pulled me aside, and they was like, yo, man, you need to go to this club uptown. And I said, what club you talking about? I'm from uptown. Y'all from Jersey. What club uptown y'all know about that I don't know about? He was like, nah, you need to go to this club called the Uptown Comedy Club on 125th Street. So they was like, they gave me all the information. Back then, you got to realize there wasn't no fucking Google out there. There wasn't no Waze. You just had to know, get the address and go. And when I went there, shit was like the Fight Club. There was all type of shit going on in there. There wasn't no awning outside. The venue was actually the National Black Theater, which you know about. And when you walked up the stairs, and this is history for people that want to know this shit, because there's a lot of millionaires doing this shit in this comedy game, but this is the origin, and this is the New York origin. Atlanta has its thing, Chicago has its thing, and LA has its thing. But I'm telling you the New York side of this. I walked up the steps, the doors swung open, and you talk about some raw shit. People were seated in lines. There wasn't no tables like a 2-bar minimum or nothing. This was some open shit. And it was people talking like we were at the barbershop. You know what I mean? It was a guy named Dougie Doug that was the man at this time, doing all type of shit on stage. And then there was a guy named Maceo, who was from Brooklyn, that would come by Harlem and would do some shit. And there was a whole plethora of people that were just coming out doing their shit. And Bob, I remember seeing you for the first time, man. I remember you coming in with this dude with nice hair, trimmed mustache, shoulder pads in his blazer. And that's when I had respect for Jerry from the Jersey side of this shit. Yeah. I saw this dude went by the name of Bill Bellamy on stage doing his shit and realized that this thing wasn't just some shit on 125th Street. If Jersey had some of this shit was about to spread from city to city. Do you remember, like, you wasn't in the game at this time, Marshall?
No, I wasn't around. I was around long enough to do the peppermint one time.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that. Yeah, we gonna unpack. We got some shit to unpack here.
You know what's funny though? Like, I was just saying that I kicked this thing off, you know, my comedy thing kicked off in like 85. Mm-hmm. And it really stemmed off of exactly how you opened up this this part of the conversation. My boy Antoine, who was doing stand-up, nobody knew anything about stand-up really at this time. I had been working as like a PA, you know, production assistant on concerts that was going on around Jersey and Newark and stuff. However, when I found out Antoine was doing this thing, what he would do is go to places like Catch a Rising Star and stand up, and he would have to wait in line hopefully at the end of the night get a chance to do 2-3 minutes, this, that, and the other. And that's why I really created the Terminal D of it all. Okay. So this was now, we're talking 1986, 87, you know? So all of this was going on, and there was comedians that I had knew from when I was doing PA work on these shows and stuff. So I had all of them involved with the club, as well as this guy named Rex Garvin. I don't know if you ever heard of Rex, but he was pretty popular back then. And then there was Willie Asbury. Okay. Yes. And this is long before any of this other stuff. But then as we're doing the comedy club and stuff like that, I started going over to the Apollo for it's showtime at the Apollo.
Right.
So by me being over there in Harlem, I had met some guys that told me about the Uptown Comedy Club and stuff. And what I saw was the Uptown Comedy Club was just doing their thing on Sundays. All right. Mm-hmm. So I had this space on Tuesday that I was kind of like shuffling the comedians, giving them a place to work. And this is like I guess this is in like 1987, somewhere around 87, 86, 87. And this is before I started working at Def Jam Records. I'm doing this comedy thing on the underground. And then Bill Bellamy got him on Showtime at the Apollo because I was close friends with Chuck Sutton, who produced that show. Yeah. So one thing led to another, and it was a guy who was there as the warm-up guy, and that was Terry Hodges. So that's how Terry got involved with Terminal D through Willie, because Willie was like the guy wearing the Ronald Reagan mask. And then you had them guys, Steve Llewellyn or whatever their names was, and William Allen. It was a bunch of guys, but they were all coming out of this Uptown Comedy Club place. So what I told them was, you know, we could give you guys a place to come over in Jersey to work out. Okay. So that's where, see, Hamburg and those guys, I knew them from just in Jersey. They weren't even doing comedy. You know what I mean?
Let me jump right in there, Bob, because that was a great alley-oop for this.
So it's a whole lot to all of it before it gets to you and coming in there.
Right,
you know?
right. So that was...
Nobody ever tells that damn story, though. You know, and that's a whole nother thing. I hear that so many people say that Def Jam came from the Uptown. That's not true. Only thing that Uptown had to do with Def Comedy Jam for me was I took the HBO's execs up there so they can see how powerful Black comedy was.
What's up, boys and girls? It's your boy, Rob Stapleton, and you're watching the Rob Stapleton Effect.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to subscribe.
And turn on them motherfucking notifications. I just want to do it.
And turn on them cold-blooded, them low-down, dirty.
And that's right where I want to jump in, because I was there. I was there at that time when that exactly happened. And my recollection of it, a little bit before that, what used to happen was the Apollo had Showtime at the Apollo, which they were filming live. And a lot of the comedians would get booed, but the comedians that did well there, the producer and the director of the show, Don Weiner, would ask, "Where are you from?" And during the intro, they would say, "From the Uptown Comedy Club." And I remember Don Weiner and Tom, the other producer, came down a couple of blocks, walked to the Uptown Comedy Club, and they said, "We got to see this shit in person to see what the hell is going on here." And this is when the Uptown originally got their show from. And I remember you speaking with the big boss, with Russell and Stan, and I'd be Sandy, I forget the young lady, and they came down to come see what was going on at the Uptown. So what you're saying is there was energy before the Uptown not really being responsible for Def Comedy Jam.
Oh, Uptown has nothing to do with Def Comedy Jam. I was already in the mix. I was working for the record company, you know, and Carmen knew that I was doing comedy because that's when she first met Bill Bellamy, when I had Bill doing a show up in Ossining, New York. this was in 89, like the 89. And then after that, I got hired at Def Jam a little later. So I don't know what was going on with Russell and Stan, and them used to have meetings with people. They was trying to do, TV stuff. I don't know.
So Bob, tell me how that meeting goes when you tell Russell's on top of the world at Def Jam. When you having this conversation with him about to come in and about this comedy thing that's about the bubble, how does that conversation go?
It really wasn't much of a conversation. What it was is they wanted to do a stand-up comedy show, and I had, this is before the Peppermint, I had left Terminal D because Terminal D was on some whole other, they had forgot that I built that shit. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I moved on and I took this young man who had just graduated from Rutgers University by the name of Bill Bellamy in 1988. I went to Club 88, brought Bill with me. At first, Terry came, but it wasn't big enough for him at the time. And he went back to Terminal D. I was like, cool, you ain't rocking with me? That's okay. I got Bill. So at that time, everybody used to go to this club on Thursday nights called Charades in Newark, right? Irvington. So anyway, that used to be the place. But Bill and I went over to Club 88 with my boy Harold, who passed away. Rest in peace, Harold.
Rest in peace, Harold. Yeah.
We went up there and we started like just building this thing. I had to like Terminal D was still rocking on Tuesdays, but I'm building Thursday over here. And before you know it, it started popping. Now, in the meantime, during my transition from Terminal D to 88, I get this job at Def Jam Records as assistant to the president for Carmen, who was with me when she first saw Bill. You know what I mean? Right. So she already knew I was doing this comedy thing. Now, Stan and Russell, I met Stan through answering the damn phones. And he took a liking to me. Come to find out, him and Russell were working on the new music report with Dougie Doug.
Oh,
okay. They were already in that mix. But at the same time, and I guess in the back of their mind, they wanted to do this comedy thing. And again, I was all in the mix since 85 doing this, not knowing that a TV show was going to come out of it. But
that's the next question I was going to ask you. At this point, did you see TV show out of it, or did you just see a good time in a club?
I didn't know what was going to become of it until I saw that Russell was moving into television through New Music Report. And now there's an opportunity to maybe do a stand-up show, where it was going to be, what it was going to be called. Nobody knew any of that. And then one day they say, to go up here to the Uptown with Carolyn Strauss, who's like a mega producer. And we get back, they enjoyed what they saw, I guess. And they said, well, Bob, can you put together a little pilot for me? And all I did was take the relationships that I had from the Steve Harveys and the Joe Torres and whoever else it was. And then it led me to finding Bernie Mac.
Okay, look, man. Bob, you're not going to just walk by this and say, put together this little pilot. We're talking about some shit that redefined the comedy, the course of comedy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Can I say this real quick?
I can do the damn thing again, though. Yeah. It's the formula.
It's the formula.
That's all it is.
I just want to say this. Yo, Bob, we already, like, you done already did so many things for me and my comedy and my career. You pretty much took my comedy from being me doing comedy and put it in the lane of it being a career. So on this podcast today, I'm really gonna be just sitting back listening. I'm like, because like I want to hear what you got to say. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Marshall, that is right. There's gonna be a lot of people that are in this game that don't even know how they got into this game, and that's what this shit is about. That's what this episode is about.
I be hearing comparisons to me to people who I birthed, basically.
So Bob, how is this? Okay, so look, you start to go on the road. You start to do showcases, right? They talking about doing a pilot, right? So now you got to extend outside of New York. You got to set up showcases in Atlanta. You got to set up showcases in Chicago. Of course, you got to go to LA. Tell us about this craziness that you're seeing.
Well, you're going by what you saw, but you got to understand, I'm just giving this ball. They threw me the ball. All right, if you know anything about me and the ball, I know what to do with a ball.
Right.
Bob, you don't even remember this. You called me. You couldn't separate me and JB Smooth back at that time back in the day. There was certain cliques, Artie and Will Sivens. There was certain couples, groups. I remember you gave me a fucking call and you said, Rob, you're not on this showcase, but bring your ass out to Jersey tonight. I want you to see this female from Chicago. This bitch is going to be the next one. You may not have used that term, but you said she going to be the next one. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know what I'm talking about?
But see, that's we're on the subject now of how I orchestrated this whole thing. Okay. Because I know that I have a national television show. Okay. All right. I don't know how many black subscribers HBO had at the time, but all HBO really did in terms of young new comedians, they would do that young comedian special. Okay. Yeah. They would feature that. But other than that, if you had anything kind of popping, Mark Carey, a couple, Robin Harris, they had their half hours or their hours or whatever, but nobody knew that there was like these funnels of black comedy all over the country. So what I had to do was zero in on the main places. And that's what I was telling you about the Facebook post I saw today about who has the hottest comedians and all that. I had to like really look at what was out there besides what I already knew. So I zeroed in on DC, Chicago, Atlanta, all right? Now I already knew that New York and LA would be covered because, you know, and with New York, you have whatever. And with LA is LA. So that was the beginning of it all right? But I'm sure you're speaking of Adele Givens.
Yes. You said, Rob, bring your ass out here and just see this.
Well, and that's only because Arsenal and Mitchell. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, who was a dynamic duo. Phenomenal. And they did work with me and they ended up at the Uptown. A lot of people came out of Terminal D and flowed up to the Uptown, which was the perfect spot for them to get their shit together. Yeah. You know what I mean? Big up to them guys, you know? So, you know, the whole thing went down where Arsenal and Mitchell had told Adele that she needed to holler at me when she came this way because she was bubbling in Chicago. Right. So when she came this way, she came and did what you're saying. All right. And the thing is, she was so dope that I said, okay, what I'm going to do now is call Adele from my Def Jam office. I'm still at Def Jam Records, right? We don't even have the name of the damn show yet. Okay. Yes. And that's the funny thing about when I hear comedy jam. And the way that name came about, you wouldn't believe. However, now Adele rocks. I call Adele. I say, is there anybody out in Chicago that could set up a showcase? This is the formula, and this is what I'm saying. I want to do this same show formula again. Even if you put 10 comedians up at one of your spots, and one of your spots, I need to look at everybody like it's 1991 right now.
Right now. So at this point, you're asking Adele who's hot in Chi-Town.
I'm asking Adele who's that person that can put together a showcase for me so I can see what's popping in Chicago. I already know what's popping in New York, New Jersey.
Right. You got that on lock already. Right.
I'm getting ready to put all of this stuff together. So now she tells me that I need to give a call to her friend Bernie. Okay.
This is crazy, y'all. This is crazy. Go ahead.
So I call Bernie. I tell him, My name is Bob Sumner. I'm calling from Def Jam Records, and we're looking to do shoot a pilot of a stand-up show for HBO. And Adele Givens told me to call you. If you listen to read Bernie's book, he talks about this. And I said, can you put together some comedians? I'll fly out there and check them out. Bernie said, cool, but I'm on my way to Atlanta right now, and I'll get back with you when I get back.
Right.
He said he was on his way to Atlanta to perform at a club. I was like, well, I'm on my way to Atlanta to work for Def Jam at Jack the Rapper. I was still doing my music thing, okay? So he was performing at the Comedy Act Theater in Atlanta. See, a lot of people don't understand that was the beginning of when we was messing with each other. People was fronting, all right? Because Michael Williams had a great thing going on out in Los Angeles, and he had a satellite club in Atlanta that his brother Gary was running, all right? So Bernie was there, and I said, I'll come down there to see you, all right? And honestly, when I got back home, my first call was to Bill Bellamy. And I told Bill that I saw the funniest that I ever saw.
Bob, I gotta stop you right there, man. No, you don't understand. This is before the big boom. People that are listening to this, we're so used to this shit because everybody blew up. You got to realize this is the Supremes talking to the Temptations. This is Marvin Gaye talking to Smokey before the sitcoms and the movies. Go ahead, Bob. I just had to throw that in there, man. Go ahead.
But the thing is, everybody know I'm kind of like Stoneface in the club. You know what I mean? I might be laughing inside, but you don't really see me like letting it out unless I have to. I did that with Timmy Hall. Listen, Bernie had me rolling on the floor, literally on the floor. I had never seen anything like it.
Now, this is at the Comedy Act in Atlanta?
It was at the Comedy Act Theater in Atlanta long before we even knew what the name of Def Comedy Jam was going to be.
Crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
Crazy. So now at this place, I mean, the only person that really had the place in an uproar that night was What My Name Is, Jamario. Like all of the Atlanta strippers love this dude. I was like an amazing. So again, I mean, so that was the beginning of my relationship with Bernie. And then Bernie put together a showcase for me out in Chicago. And it was crazy because it was on a Sunday after the Bears game. The Bears was very hot at the time, as well as the Bulls. And we did this showcase and people were coming in and stuff. And there was a young lady that came in and Bernie said, you mind if she sit with you? Right. And I looked and saw who it was. I knew her from when I used to do shows in college. Know who it was?
Who was that?
Phyllis Hyman.
Oh, that goes right into your jazz right there.
Well, it was the whole thing because I booked her when I was on the radio at Seton Hall. We had her come through the BSU to perform. So it was like and that was like at, the early 80s when I was in college. So I hadn't seen her in a minute.
Nice.
And that was so cool to sit there with Phyllis and we were cracking up. So my memories of Phyllis is all smiles. I saw her on good days. Beautiful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of the ride that led me to DC, that led me to Oakland. You know what I mean?
So hold up. So you're there sitting next to Phyllis Hyman, Bob, and Bernie is going to work. You're there for business, but he's making you laugh outwardly.
Well, Bernie had made me laugh in Atlanta already. So all I really needed him to do, I told Bernie in Atlanta that I was bringing him to New York City. You know what I mean? So he kind of already knew, but he still was like, HBO's coming. It wasn't nothing about Def Jam because it was HBO as far as he was concerned. And nobody really cared about Def Jam until we became the Coca-Cola of comedy.
Right.
We became, you say, give me a Coke, it might be a Pepsi, it might be a RC, but it's that brand. Just like people say a Def Jam comic just because. What is a Def Jam comic?
Bob, let me ask you this. So look, when you looking at Bernie, and this is early at this stage, right? When you're looking at, like if you're looking at a college basketball player coming out, you want to know, can he take it to the hole? Can he shoot? Or whatever sport. In this sport of comedy, what are you looking at, Bob? What are you looking at Bernie going, he got it?
5-star. 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 He could handle. He could D up. He had a jumper. He had court awareness. He didn't hog the ball. You know what I mean? And that's what made it so easy. And I know we could go all over the place with this, but it was so easy.
This is crazy. This is crazy. This is
listen,
early Bernie we talking about.
But listen,
this
it
is
was
before the original Kings. This is real shit.
I mean, that's why, I mean, all of that stuff, man, they don't even want to hear what I have to say about all of that, because
we get to that when we get
because the thing is, when you think about Thanksgiving, about what the Indians had, and then people just came and took, because they had this, that, and the other. That's pretty much what we went through with Def Comedy Jam. You know what I mean? Everybody becomes kings and queens of comedy when that was supposed to be a Def Comedy Jam reunion. I could be straight up with you if you want me to. All right, but I know that God wants me to stay straight in my lane and just keep it moving, because it works. What I do works. All right, but back to the Bernie of it all, and this is how much I felt about Bernie. Okay. Now that the show has become a hit, right? The only thing to do now, before anybody was touring, there was a Def Comedy Jam tour. I would put guys on a bus, just like it was the class of 91, the class of 92, the class of 93. That's how we was moving. And the only person that was steady was the Kid Capri. You dig? Kid. So it was like an interesting thing. But what happened was, when I said that we wanted to tour, everybody automatically say, how you going to do a Def Comedy Jam tour?
Wait, Bob, wait,
without
hold
Martin.
on. You jump. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you skip it too much, man. You already going on the tour.
I'm not skipping. I'm telling you about Bernie.
Okay.
This ain't about the tour. This is about Bernie.
Gotcha.
All right?
Okay.
So everybody is wondering, how the hell are you going to do a tour of Def Comedy Jam? You have Kid Capri, but you don't have Martin. Martin's on his own. Martin doing his own tour, right? Martin could do whatever he want to do, pack houses, because he's hotter than fish grease, right? So now what I do is I tell him, I say, Bernie could host, because I know he can. And that's what I did. And next thing I know, HBO offered Bernie his own TV show. That's what I do. I connect the dots. You know what I'm saying? And we roll from there. So needless to say, that's part of my Bernie story.
You're watching the Rob Stapleton Effect.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to subscribe
and turn on those notifications. Peace. It's so much to unpack here, man, and unpack, and I'm excited, man. You get a lot of people that call themselves comedians, but they dudes telling jokes that don't understand what opened up before them and what led to all of this. So now you're going from city to city. You're going to St. Louis, or bringing people from St. Louis to your city. You got the Torrey brothers. You got this dude named Cedric. You got a dude named DL out in California. You got a dude named, what's this dude name in Atlanta? What's this dude named Chris Tucker? This guy named Chris Tucker who may be big one day. How the fuck do you sit there knowing that your lineup, Bob, because people, I know you do not like to release your recipe, but there's a certain way that you stack lineups. Like the Yankees, there's a leadoff hitter, a cleanup, and then there's a number 9 hitter. You have to pay attention to all that, and you led into that when you was talking about Showtime at the Apollo.
Right. Remember, at Showtime at the Apollo, they would book comedians who would just flat out bomb. And then you would have comedians in the green room hoping somebody would bomb, or knowing somebody was going to bomb. So when I booked my show, I didn't know if somebody was going to bomb until I had somebody come out and say, I ain't scared of you motherfuckers. That's when I knew somebody bombed. All right. So, you know, that's just how it went. But I've had the pleasure to play a very significant role in the creation of a groundbreaking stand-up comedy show that helped change lives and the color of comedy forever. You did?
I don't think people understood the energy at the Academy. If people look over Bob's right shoulder, right there, if they look over Bob Sumner's right shoulder, there's a poster right there that says Def Comedy Jam, Martin Lawrence. That may be the part that's the sexy part that catches your eyes. But it's
right next to it is Madison Square Garden sold out. You did? And that was, you know.
But it's that word underneath, the Academy. That's where the original seasons of Def Comedy Jam was filmed.
Not the Apollo, right?
Not the Apollo. Not the Uptown, not the Apollo. The original episodes of Def Comedy Jam season 1, season 2 was recorded at the Academy. When I tell you it was a fucking movie. They could have filmed the series What Went On Outside to get in.
We could have made a whole
that line story. When you see Russell Simmons walking to get in, that's not made up. That line is going that way, both ways in the building, and everybody is somebody trying to get in.
It went from 43rd to 42nd between 7th and 8th.
That's crazy.
And this is in the middle of the week, so this isn't no just Friday or Saturday. See, this was like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like when they did the tapings. And when you made it inside there, it was brilliant to hire a DJ like Kid Capri, where it was a party where you were sitting in your seat and that energy. Man, I mean, I'm saying this right now, but I don't think people realize the fucking energy that was going on in that building before the warm-up act came out to just address the crowd.
So you understand where that all came from, right?
Where did that come from, Bob?
That was just the design that I had at Terminal D.
That's what I was going to say. I wanted you to say that. Because the way you design those shows led all the way to that.
I had my mom worked at RCA Records, you know, and this is before I was working at Def Jam. When I first started at Terminal D, I just had my records. I was a DJ. And I had always, whenever I would go to Rascals or somewhere, you know, you go to a comedy club and you had the little piano player, you know, tinkling on the keys, or you had the drummer with the snare drum and the cymbal. You know what I mean? That was comedy. And I knew that comedy could be a party, you know? So I just started playing, you know, DJing at Terminal D before the comedy show. And then when the show started, I never forget, I would just start playing like, you know, Def Jam joints and this, that, and the other.
Play the hot shit.
Yeah, so it just led to when we were putting Def Comedy Jam together, it was a couple elements that we needed. One is we needed a DJ because this is Def Jam. We got to do this like this. But we also needed a hot host, and we also needed a voice of God, so to speak, you know, the announcer.
Right. So let me stop you right there, Bob. So right there, you just said the words out of your mouth.
You like Kenny Smith. You like Kenny Smith on TNT. Like, hold it right there.
Yeah, because right now on this podcast, when people watch this, it's a lot of talk that people don't know. And this is the behind the scenes shit. So people know Def Comedy Jam and they know Martin Lawrence. But the real comedy people know that he wasn't the original host. There was another guy that was thought to be the host of the show, and I don't want to just skirt past that. We want to talk about it.
No, we're not going to skirt past it, but when I say something, I guess your mind is going like, yeah, right? Yeah. And the thing is, I'm leading to the Kid Capri, because that's where we were. Gotcha. We were talking about Kid Capri, and basically, I didn't know who it was going to be. Who was going to be that DJ?
Right.
Until there was a thing called the Budweiser Superfest.
Ah, shit.
All right. So now they're playing the Garden, the Superfest, right? Babyface is headlining, right? He's co-headlining with This Is For The Cool. Remember that? This Is For The Cool, right? So that was on some R&B stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you in New York City, so you got to bring the hottest joint in the building right now. So we brought in a guy named James Todd Smith. Some of you know him as LL Cool
Right,
J.
right.
Todd had a new album out called Mama Said Knock You Out.
I think I heard of that before. Yeah.
Did you hear that?
I think I heard of that
so,
before.
Oh man, that's a whole story with that too. But that's for another day. All right. So now the show was banging, and now it's the after party, right? Now you know how we were whenever we went up to the Apollo Theater or whenever we went out to a premiere or whatever. If you didn't have on your varsity Def Jam jacket, you weren't part of the squad. Right? So we came down there like we was Georgetown with Patton, right? We came down to the after party that was at that building on West Side Highway that used to have them vintage cars in it. I forget what the name of it, but they had these vintage cars all in the club, right? So the DJ was up there killing it, right? And then I looked and he on the mic talking the talk. I said, that's my DJ right there. That's going to be him. And that was the beginning of all these clubs, all these comedians, all these DJs all around the world that is DJing in these clubs, in these comedy clubs, and comedians talking about the DJ got to play his song and all that. There was a time when none of that was going on. All right. That was the birth of Kid Capri. Simple as that. And then he started opening up for Bad Boy tours and everything because he would open up our tour to go along with, the TV show.
Right. Crazy.
Just thinking, man, creating.
Putting pieces together. So right there, you're putting the pieces together, Bob. You're putting the pieces together. So now you got Kid Capri, so you got your DJ, so you got your opening of your show locked up. So when it comes to the host, so
well, you got to remember when I opened up the story, I was going around looking, and I hadn't made it to LA yet. But I already had in my mind, because I had sent Bill Bellamy out to LA to hang out with my roommate from college. Bill's first time in LA, I had him hang out with my roommate from college and a young lady from high school who was working for Arsenio Hall. And that's how I actually met J. Anthony Brown. And that's when Bill first met J. Anthony. So Jay was doing a place called Mavericks Flat, but there was also the Comedy Act Theater that was with Robin Harris, So Robin had the flavor of what we were trying to bring to the show. But it's crazy because while all this was in the planning stages, before I went to Atlanta or anything, Robin passed away. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So that really put a halt on who's going to be this host. And then there was a show, I believe it was the Apollo, the Beacon of the Apollo, I believe it was the Apollo, that at this time In Living Color was the toast of the town. Right. In Living Color. Yeah. So you had all them stand-up comedians from In Living Color, and then you had Paul Mooney, who was, Paul Mooney, and then you had the kid from House Party. He was on the show, right? And I think he had his half hour or whatever on HBO, but his performance was like, okay, that fits, right? But at the same time, I'm new to the whole Hollywood of it all. I've been doing this thing in North, okay? Right. So now I run it past Russell and Stan. They run it past Eddie and Arsenio. Come to find out, HBO was looking for a vehicle for Martin, okay? Here it is, Yeah.
And like you said, this is on the cuffs of his half-hour special too. Yep.
I mean, it was or Top of Carew. They was working a situation. Yeah. So this was the perfect situation prior to what became the Martin. Which you saw what Martin did with that. What did he do? He brought a guy named Hustle Man onto the show. You know what I mean? Things like that. You look at the Steve Harvey show. He brought a guy named Cedric on. See, we was developing situations right on that Def Comedy Jam stage.
Right.
Crazy, right?
Crazy.
Not to mention the Chris Tucker story.
It's crazy. This is like Motown for comedy.
I didn't even know Chris was from Atlanta. I didn't even know he was from Atlanta when I first saw him.
Is that true? Yeah.
I didn't know he was from Atlanta. I just knew he was some guy that didn't make it to the next round up in Oakland in the competition.
When's the first time you put your eyes on Chris Tucker? When was the first time?
It was simple. I had already shot the first piece of Def Comedy Jam. Okay. We had already shot the first piece, which was in October, right? So now we're getting ready to shoot more in June, all right? So in February, there's a thing called the Bay Area Black Comedy Competition.
Yes.
All right? So I decide that this would give me like, a head start on booking Def Comedy Jam for June, right? So there's 60 comedians performing.
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 20 comedians per night.
Yeah.
The top 7 move into the round of 21, which is the quarterfinals before the semifinals, then the finals, right? So there's levels to this, okay? So this is like March Madness, the play-in game, okay? All right? So I decide I'm judging. They asked me to judge on Saturday night, okay? But I want to be prepared for my show. So I'm going in on Friday night to start scouting. Because if I wasn't doing what I do, I probably would be an NBA or college scout or coach, to be honest with you. All right. So this is my whole system is based off of sports. All right. So now I'm sitting in here watching 20 comedians perform. Right. Now at the end, the top 7 will move into the next round. So all 20 comedians come on the stage, just like Showtime at the Apollo and Kiki Shepard, right? They're all standing there. And when I call your name, step to the front, right? So they got to like 4. And my favorite hasn't been called yet, right? So they get to 5 and 6. When they got to 7, I said, we're in the Bay Area. we're about in the Bay Area. So I said, I need to go in the back and catch this kid before he go find the Golden Gate or the Bay Area, the Bay Bridge. He about to jump, all right? Because this kid wasn't in the top 7. So I went backstage and I said, listen, fam, I know that you didn't make it to the next round, but in my eyes, you won. My name is Bob Sumner. I produced that new comedy show called Def Comedy Jam, and I'm going to put you, Chris Tucker, on this show. All right? And it was crazy because the set that he did, maybe he might have got disqualified. Somebody said that he went over or whatever, but the set you saw in Def Comedy Jam with Michael Jackson, that was the set. That was the same set.
What?
They said Chris ain't had but a couple minutes. So those couple minutes. And that's what I was about. Def Comedy Jam was a showcase. You didn't have to have an hour. You didn't even have to have 20 minutes. You needed 20 to tour, but not 20 to be on that show. Follow me? So that's the Chris Tucker story. Next thing I know, he's Smokey and Friday. I heard him telling that story on T.I.'s podcast, and T.I. was bugging that it happened. And I wish I could have called in and said, I'm the producer y'all talking about right now.
Yeah, that's dope.
Bob, that's actually the first time I heard that story. I didn't even know that about the Bay Area connection, you being there and you throwing that, to him.
Listen, every time I judge a competition, I tell that story because I want everyone who didn't come in first to know that you might have come in first. You don't know. You don't know who's in that audience. I remember one time me, Mekhi Phifer, and Robbie Reed was sitting in a room in Sherman Oaks that there might have been 14, 15 people in the room. One thing that you don't do when you're doing stand-up, don't go up there and use the audience as your joke. Security did a great job keeping people out of here and all that, because you don't know who's in that room. You know what I mean? You should be grateful and just jump into your stand-up and do what you got to do.
Bob, that's great. Let me ask you this, Bob. Describe to our listeners, our viewers, that energy that's going on that first season. That first season, people are in the green room. Martin is out there on the stage. You have people like Mac that's been doing it for a few years before he could take it to the next level. Like, how much self-doubt is going on between the performers in their mind? How many people are psyching themselves out before they go on? How much are you saying just do what you regularly do before they go out? Explain that situation up.
Well, my thing is, and this is why I do live showcases, because I need to go out there and see you kill. Right. And then I need you to give me that same set, those same 7 minutes that you gave me, because I know that that's what New York, that's what my audience is going to love. And I know that that's what America is going to love, because you're not one dimensional. You know what I mean? That's what I was looking for, comedians who had their own flavor, their own styles. But at the same time, I believe that there needs to be some nervousness in you, because that means you're ready. When I played basketball before a game, if I wasn't feeling a little jittery, something wasn't right. You know what I mean?
No, I heard you used to dunk, Bob. I heard you used to dunk too.
Yeah. Used to is a good word to use. But it was a little bit more to my game than just jumping, but I could get up. But that's a whole nother story. And a lot of comedians don't even talk about basketball with me no more, because I'm going to tell you real fast. You know what I thought about? I wish Ricky Harris was here to speak on this. Because when we were doing the Def Comedy Jam, just a sidebar real fast, we had 2 tours going out at the same time. So on Thanksgiving, we met up in California, and we were going to, after that day, we were going to move on to where you playing Friday, one going to Portland, one going to San Diego. So we meet at the Y, and one of the comedians was talking so much stuff the whole time, getting ready to get to this. So here we are, right? And we balling, 5-on-5, Bill Bellamy, Arnez J, all these comedians is playing. And it got to the end of the game, and it was like a sudden death situation, and I was not going to lose this game. So I set my man up at the top of the key, right, past the 3-point line, and I let it go, right? And when I let it go, I knew it was going to fall, and I ran outside to get a drink of water. And when I came back in, the net had curled up, and Ricky Harris looked at me and said, "No, you didn't." I said, "Yes, I did." And when I saw Suggs hit that jumper the other day for Gonzaga, Gonzaga, end of the game jumper, I'd be damn if that didn't remind me of me.
That sidebar like a motherfucker. Hey, it's your boy Rob Stapleton, and you're watching the Rob Stapleton Effect.
Get your ass out there and subscribe.
And turn on them notifications
right now.
Ding. But Bob, you said something that's very interesting. So look, you made them do the live stuff so that they can pretty much get used to being in front of a New York crowd. How many artists did you feel when they went up there, they didn't do the 7 minutes that they should have done?
Not make them. I mean, I just felt like I wanted them to do their sets. Will Sylvans, right? Will Sylvans can attest to this. All right. I'm in Chicago at the 50-yard line, right? Let's go to the 50-yard line. We got a showcase going on. And this lady, right? This lady is killing it, right? I'm like, wow, she killed it. Like, she got a standing O, this, that, and the other. Her name was, all right? All right? So anyway. Anyway,
talk that shit, Bob. Talk that shit.
I can't wait until she get to New York, because the thing about Def Comedy Jam, we had all different types of comedians. You know, I had Dolomite on there. I had Wild Man Steve on there. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So we had like we went from the youngins like Aries Spears and Dave Chappelle all the way up. You know, they were youngins at the time. Right. All right. So now we're at when you talk about the energy, going back to the energy and the love, you have to remember these comedians was from all over the country. So when they converged on the Macklow Hotel, it was like a big, like, welcoming thing, this, that, and the other. And we would send cars to bring the people in. Like the Apollo used to squat to see who I was flying in before they would book the show. They started getting real slick. They didn't give me nothing for it, right? But anyway, here comes the limo, right? Or the town car, and it opens up, and the lady from Chicago, okay? There she is, and I'm talking cash. She about to beat it up because you know Chicago got some bad mothers, right?
Bad motherfucker.
So first thing she said to me is, Bob, wait till you hear my new material.
I got a toast it out.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Oh man, God.
Y'all can send me a bottle, by the way.
We got a bottle of Blue Royal coming to you, Bob. All right? You get it in 2 days.
Hey, it was like, know what it was? Know what it was the setup for? What? Know what it was set up for?
What was that?
It was the perfect setup. I didn't know at the time. Well, I knew because once she told me that, you know, I hadn't seen anything, so I couldn't vouch what was going to hit that stage. Okay, I couldn't vouch for that. But know what it was?
What was that?
It was a I ain't scared of you motherfuckers moment.
Oh,
you understand? Because it was like, you know, the guy who bombed when Bernie came and did, you know, it was one of them. Like, it was one of them. One thing I know, Bob Sumner wasn't 1,000%. When I put somebody on that stage, I knew, and that's why when I booked the show, I knew it was going to be somebody that fell into that Apollo Green Room bombs situation. Somebody might if you use the wrong material. That's why I gotta see you live, and you have to do that set, or you're not gonna air, because I will always shoot 60 and air 48.
Right.
You dig? So it was hard sometimes when somebody was on the cusp, but should they make it or not? You know, that was a hard situation for me a lot of times.
Right. So when you got moments like that, right? So you have Eddie Griffin hitting that stage for the first time. And when you have a set like that right from the jump, explain the energy that's in the room from the crowd, and when you guys in backstage, downstairs, in the back, like you'll know that that's a moment.
Well, with a lot of that, I'm the only one that knows the moment is coming, because no one else has seen them. You know what I mean? No one else has seen them. So I'm sitting there going, it's about to happen. Here it comes. Here it comes. In my head, I got some 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 type shit going on. I mean, and it happened so many times that I'm that guy. And that's why it has always been so easy for me to book the reason, and Marshall know this from the rooms that we have, like there's always that we don't care about your credit. Well, with Def Jam, nobody had real credits anyway. But in terms of the who goes first, second, third, it's just a way to balance it, because you want your joint to hit, but you also want it to close. But you want it to hit so number 2 and 3 can hopefully raise the roof. That's why I don't believe in when these guys be going around with their headliners, with their opening acts, telling their opening acts. As long as you're not doing the material that I'm going to touch on, the topics, I want you to kill. I want you to set this room up for me, Make it easy. Make it easy. It's easier for me if you rock the room as opposed to now you done not be your real self. You done kind of like did it like that so I can come in and look good. Fuck that.
Yeah. You're right. Nah, you're definitely right about that. So, Bob, you have the first season comes to a conclusion, takes the country by storm. Everyone's talking about it. People don't realize how many white viewers tapped into that night, like to make it this big phenomenon that it was. But now, what happens after the first season, Martin blows up. He gets the offer. He gets his show. He easily could have walked away. He comes back, right? One of the biggest things that I love, I don't know, Marsha, if you feel about it, but even during season 1 was Martin would come out. The energy between him and Kid Capri was crazy. Yeah. But now you got the celebrities popping in there. You got the celebrities in the balcony, which people don't realize that gave you a dimension that made it feel like they were in your home. So while you're watching Def Comedy Jam, what was that?
Those are the same people that used to come over to Def Jam Records on 652 Broadway. And all we would do is give them tickets to the show. It wasn't no heavy, it wasn't no big deal.
It wasn't no big deal to you, but for the profile for the show, it definitely branded the show to make it look like it was already the place to be, but it just highlighted that it's the place to be. What made you think that Martin decided to come back and do another season when a lesser smart man would have walked away, but he was brilliant to stick around for another season and to still have that love? Because,
I mean, it was actually 3 seasons that Martin did.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It was 3 seasons because remember I tell you we did October, then we did June, right. Then we came back with another one in like September or something.
Right. Okay.
And the thing is when we worked around Martin's schedule the last time, and that's when it really showed that, it was too much work for him because the show was just so dope and serious. I'm talking about the Martin show. It was so I mean, it was just a great thing, but it was definitely a beautiful thing for him, because it definitely took him to a whole nother level,
Do you feel like the comics today that got the success give you the respect that you deserve?
Do I feel like the comics today,
the superstar comics?
Oh, they good. They better than the ones who they better than the ones who didn't get to where they got.
No, you know why I asked you that question, Bob? Because I always feel like when you become the person that has to select, comics are very selfish people. And I'm going to keep it $120 with you. You're giving them a position that could change their life, but they have to be ready for that. Every comic in the fucking country thinks that they're the next one. You have to be the one to tell you that the baby is ugly. You know what I mean?
And I mean, that's what happens. But I've never, I never had to ask any of them. I'm not the guy that, because I put you on, God put you on. You know what I mean? Right. Just like God is handling me. Nobody owes me anything. However, I'm getting ready to launch my own podcast. Right. And I will be calling on all of them. Yeah. All right. Hey, I will be calling on all of them. And whoever turn me down, I'm on to the next, but I'm taking notes. You know what I mean? Because it's not no heavy with me because I ain't never burned no bridges. I love everybody. However, when we did Def Jam 25, you would have thought I produced that show because the guys that weren't invited or wasn't part of it, I had nothing to do with it. But if you read Facebook and stuff, the old Bob Sumner would have came at somebody. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just not that dude anymore because, again, in terms of what I do and how I'm supposedly a gatekeeper, I be listening to the Breakfast Club sometime, and I say to Charmaine, have me on this, dude. Let me handle what these beefs that everybody is having because everybody all of a sudden is superstars. I remember when everybody didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out, Right. So when I look at all of this a little different than most. And that's why when I see Shannon Sharpe interviewing JB Smoove, talking about the 90s being the golden age. I say, yo, we could do this again. This just didn't happen like this. People be talking about, we want to do the next Def Jam, this, that, and the other. I'm work for hire. I'll produce it. You know what I mean? I'm about watching people go from the outhouse to the penthouse. Plain and simple.
What do you think is missing in the comedy game nowadays?
What's
is
missing in the comedy game was what just happened. This was missing. We needed a halt. It needed to stop. All of this needed to stop because y'all running crazy. You know, everybody's all over the place. I look at these flyers, and I mean, I'm here to tell you that some of the dopest comedians before the pandemic, now I gotta see what everybody's doing. Now, this is like 21 is 91 to me right now, okay? However, before the pandemic, you know what I noticed?
What's that?
The women were bringing it more than the dudes on stage. I'm telling you.
It's a lot of tough female comedians.
A lot of them, but when I look at a flyer, I see 5 dudes. Like, why isn't there any representation with a female on a show? You know what I mean? I don't know what it is, but if you notice any of my shows, I've always had that because, you know, at South Consuelo, the room is full of women. Don't you think they want to hear their side coming from the stage? You know what I mean? So, and I applaud you for all that you've been doing with your rooms from Sugar Shack. It's a formula. Nels, you know what it is. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Huh?
I'm not gonna lie, man. I watched what the Kings did. I watched what the Brown Brothers did. I watched what you did and just applied it. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I reinvented the wheel. I just put new rims on it.
People think it's easy though.
Oh yeah, exactly.
People think, that's the point I'm saying. People think it's easy. You have to be passionate about what you're doing. You know what I mean? In order to make something work. Right. This ain't a hustle. This ain't a hustle for the people that believe in the art.
Bob knows what he's talking about this. Bob talks about this, but he walks the walk. Marshall knows about this. Before Def Comedy Jam, Bob had a gym. There was a gym you had to go to work on your chest, work on your arms, work on your legs before you were able to. You got to realize that was Broadway. Def Comedy Jam was on Broadway. Right. You know what I mean? And he had a room called the Peppermint Lounge, the infamous Peppermint Lounge that he did in Jersey. And if any room was to get your jump shot ready for Def Comedy Jam, it was motherfucking Peppermint Lounge out in New Jersey.
Well, at first it was Club 88. It was Club 88. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's where we laid the foundation.
Yeah, that's where the foundation was laid, right?
Yeah, but then the Peppermint was a situation that, as I mentioned earlier, I would showcase 60 comedians to get to 48 on Def Comedy Jam, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So now I'm about to deliver this next season to Def Comedy Jam, and I get a call in my office that I'm coming to. I hear that I need to come to the Peppermint in order to get on Def Jam, and I'm like, to be honest with you, yes, you do, but I'm pretty much booked right now, you know? So she said, well, I'm coming from California, and when you see me, you're gonna have to do something about that. Sure enough, I had to do something about it because I called Stan and I said, listen, man, I know that we have 60 comedians booked, but this young lady just had somebody drive with her from California. And when I tell you that she beat the room up, we gotta put her on. And just like Chris Tucker did that same set from the Bay Area, right. Cheryl Underwood did that same set. She did that. Hey, and when I tell you, it was as explosive as I Ain't Scared of You, Bernie's I Ain't Scared of You set. It was that type of that Eddie Griffin set. Cheryl had one of those. Teddy Carpenter had one of those.
Yeah.
You know, it's certain sets that you'll never forget. You know what I mean? And then there's certain sets that you say, damn, you was on Def Jam. People see Kevin Hart's LOL. People see Kevin Hart's, Kevin has the whole series on his network, and it be people on there that people had no idea did
that were on there. So let me ask you, so Def Comedy Jam moves from New York and it becomes West Coast Def Comedy Jam.
That was 2 years, right? 96 and 97, like when we was pulling up.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there, because I know Mike Epps did New York and he did LA.
Oh, you know what? Let me stop you right there, Bob. Before that, there was the season that you had the All-Stars. And let me tell you this.
That season after Martin.
Yeah, that was season after Martin where they went with the All-Stars. And that was the season that I learned who the hell Mark Curry was. I was like, why did they have Mark Curry hosting? And I sat in the crowd like a regular audience member and didn't realize that motherfucker was that funny. I mean, he did so much extra material. I don't know how y'all chose to edit what you showed on TV. People don't realize the shit that don't make the screen, that they have to edit around in order to get that into 30 minutes. You know what I mean? So let's talk about that season when you had the All-Stars coming in. You had Chris Rock, you had Mark Curry, you had Ricky Harris, you had I think Queen Latifah. It was different people that hosted. How was it putting the pieces together for that?
We just had to look at what was going on with the culture, culture, and see who could make it happen. I mean, Dana had the sitcom Living Single going on,
right.
So she fit into it. Chris Rock, even though he wasn't part of the Def Jam, he was before that. That flavor fit him. Jamie Foxx, the flavor fit him. Ed Lover. Ed was, Ed was doing what he was doing, and even talent. I had talent in that movie, Sunset Park, and he was doing, the radio show in the morning. So he kind of fit the mold, and he represented the crib. You know what I'm saying? So that's what that was really all about. Just trying to identify. You had George Wallace, just like who was the who's who of, Black comedy, whether it was stand up or just sitcoms or radio, whatever the case may be, because we really needed to come out of, Martin was a hard act to follow. Yeah. And, we had Tori hosting. He was being managed by Russell and Stan's company. Okay. So it was only right to look out for your folk. Yeah. However, I'm the guy who had to listen to Bernie Mac every day on my phone saying, why in the F am I not the host? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it would have only made sense since he was hosting the tour, but at the same time, one is family and then it's family.
Bob, that's what I was going to say to you earlier. I could never understand, especially after the tour, why Bernie was never a host. And I guess that's the answer to it, what you just said, why Bernie wasn't.
Yeah. I mean, it was as simple as that. But at the same time, you see what happened. Then the next year, you had some more clients hosting with Joe. You had Ricky and Adele. You know what I mean? So that worked. But at the same time, did it? You know what I'm saying? So it's like you're all Martin. See, Martin left shoes that big. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? He left shoes that big. Yeah. So can you,
Yeah, no, that's right.
It is what it is. It is what it is. But what happened was Def Comedy Jam took the world by storm so hard that people failed to realize how important it was to the culture as we were moving towards the end of it. Because you saw a Comic View every day on TV. And the main Comic View folks were originally seen on Def Comedy Jam, whether it was DL, whether it was Cedric, whether it was whoever it was, DC Kerry, J. Anthony Brown. They all was on Def Jam. So they were all on Def Jam. So, now I'm going up against this, and all these comedians now are calling me because they did Comic View 5 and 6 times. That don't mean I'm gonna put you on Def Comedy Jam. Most definitely now, You did that 6 times. Where's your material for Def Jam? You know, like, I don't want that. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, my whole thing was somewhere else, because if you perform for me, I want to see you win an Oscar, a Grammy, an Emmy. I put Tiffany on the reboot.
Right. So now we're talking the West Coast, right? We're out in LA.
But I'm talking about the reboot after the West Coast was 96-ish. But then we did another one when we came back in 06, 07. Yeah. And that's when I put Tiff on, and everybody's like looking at me like, all I need her to do is showcase. I don't need her to do a long set. She did her thing. That was 10 years before anybody saw Girls Trip. 10 years.
10 years.
So what is that saying? What is that really saying? Damon Wayans Jr. I put Damon Wayans Jr. on. Nobody knew he was doing stand-up like that. I told him that you need to become Damon Wayans Jr. instead of Kyle Green, because that's who he was before he became, you know. Yeah. So it's a little bit of the behind-the-scenes stuff that I deal with.
And that was also the big break for Mike Epps there for the Friday, right? For next Friday.
Well, again, I mean, the whole Epps story is like, I've had my eye on Mike for a long, long time, because I knew that he had the it. Mike does a one-man show that he hasn't put out, that he did years ago over on Lafayette Street.
I saw it downtown in Manhattan. Yeah, yes.
Exactly. Yes. Can you imagine that now as him being Mike Epps? But at the same time, when I needed to fill that void after Bill went to MTV and couldn't make it back and forth to the Peppermint, I had different hosts coming through, but it was Mike Epps that the audience like
connected with. They connected
to him because he had that same thing that Bill has. They pretty boys, but the hood accepts them for some reason.
He was hosting. He was hosting the night I went to the Peppermint. He was the host.
Who, Epps?
Yeah. I ended up. We gave him a ride back to Brooklyn from Jersey that night.
So again, I mean, I've just been around. I mean, I'm into this thing, you know. But you know, a lot of people don't really know the whole side of it, but they will when they see my documentary.
You're watching the Rob Stapleton Effect.
Get out there and subscribe.
And turn on the notifications, because we coming. Well, that's it. That's what we want to get into now. So that was the stuff that you did in the past, Bob. And this podcast was about you smelling your roses, man. You know what I mean? Letting the people know the history of this. You know, people could talk good, they could talk bad, but the truth is the truth. And you had your eye on the talent of the future, sometimes 8-10 years before the rest of the country knew who the fuck that female or that male was. You know what I mean? You did a hell of a job with that, Bob. A hell of a job. I don't need to sit here the truth is in the pudding, man. You did what you did.
I'll tell you one thing that I did that was kind of like, how am I doing this? When is this going to end? I'm out there trying to build this brand, but I'm not cut for Los Angeles to live. You know,
I feel the same way.
It was grueling, man, because I'm seeing the guys from here who made it out there, and I keep saying I got to get back home to help the next, because out here I'm battling with these other guys who don't respect the fact that the reason all of these guys is somewhat in the business is because of me. You know, and then I hear,
let's tell everybody.
Then I hear some of them are starting to, you know, and I don't mind them, say, you know, impersonating me. I know I have a distinctive voice and everything, but if you're gonna do an impression of me, don't say no whack shit, okay? Don't say no personal shit, because that's when I start looking at this a different way. Like, you using my voice to say what you really want to say, and I'm very intelligent with that. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say when these people start doing that, it's one thing when you're being, you know, funny and humorous. I'm good with that. You know, like Talent say, it's just jokes. But don't say nothing that's kind of offbeat. Because
don't get on that bullshit.
Don't get on that
cross
bullshit.
the line. Pretty much you saying is
I'm a different type of executive I'm so close to you guys. A lot of executives don't come close. You know, I'm running down the street with Smokey one day coming from the Apollo, and he's with another guy, and we're on our way over to the corner social. So as we're walking, the guy goes, and the guy is like feeling my spirit, my vibe, right? And then he bugs when he finds out that I'm the same Bob Sumner that some of these guys be kicking my back in on Facebook. And he's like, you're nothing like what these dudes is saying. And I say, I know that, but I don't want them to find that other side of me out. Okay. And I deaded all of that. You'd be surprised since the pandemic how many times I've heard the 2%. You know, because all it is 2%. And that's when I say the devil's busy.
Right.
Bob, that type of shit is just going to happen, man. You know,
It's been happening for 30 years.
Right.
It's going to happen to Berry Gordy in Detroit. There's some R&B singers that motherfucker never gave me a shot. I write better than Smokey. You're going to get that. When you're the purveyor of fucking employing people, that happens.
I have to wear that. But if you know anything about my pedigree, it's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow.
You got to realize, man, I sat through showcases with you, the different cities, and you sit there, Baltimore, and there's times when you sit there and comics try to sit there and rally to try to get you to hate on Bob because Bob didn't select your ass for the fucking show. Everybody cannot be on the motherfucking show.
Yeah, Bob, we've talked about this on a couple of different occasions and I always tell you the same thing, Bob. I say anybody who got a problem with you is mad that they ain't do what they were supposed to do with their career and their opportunities. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Well said, Marshall. If you in this game for 20 years and you didn't do anything for the cream to rise to the top, it's not fucking Bob's fault.
Right.
It's not Bob's fucking fault.
Do y'all realize that on December 14th, 2005, I got hit right here. I had a hole in my head. Okay, I got carjacked and I got beat down, and that's when I really understood who my Lord and Savior was. You know, and I've been good since then. But during that time, I actually had a comedian text me and say, you ain't shit. If it wasn't for Def Jam, you wouldn't be shit. And when you got carjacked, you should have died, mother. How could I eat? How could I take that? You know, but I took it because of my Lord and Savior. But when you say that I have people, you know, that will, you know, that try to get you to team up with them and this, that, and the other, it's just the devil being busy. So when somebody can actually say that and put it in writing to you, it's like, you must be a hell of a you must be really doing your thing. People must really be wanting what you, that's how I take it. I have to. I'd be like, thank you.
So Bob, man, with Def Comedy Jam, you won the Super Bowl, right? You won the chip in the NFL Finals. But that you're not a one-trick pony. You had some other shit up your sleeve. You came up with some other shit. You redid some shit and came up with a show called Laugh Tracks. You know what I mean? It showed you that you definitely made the playoffs again. You know what I mean? You took comics jokes and made like pretty much how a musician takes a video and makes a song out of it and then does the video. You did that with the joke, which was fucking brilliant. Had several seasons of success with that. Let's talk about that real quick.
Well, I mean, basically, Carlos Custis and Jamal Dado, they were two guys that had been working with me on Def Comedy Jam when we came back during those Epps and DL years. And they just took a liking to working with me. And from there, I had sat back and watched comedy do nothing. I didn't see much. You know, they was taking them by the ones where we was taking them by the bunches. And that's what I want to do it again. But one thing that I did was I'm sitting back, I keep a pen and a pad by my nightstand, and I started thinking about recreating the wheel, because no one has done what I was able to do. You know, I basically, Michael Collier called me saying, Russell said that you did all of that, you know, for him. I didn't realize that. And the truth is, I don't really talk about it like that, but I pretty much did. You know, a good 90-something%. So when I'm looking at all of those comedians who became kings and queens and millionaires and this, that, and the other, I'm saying to myself, it could be done again. No different than you had Julius Erving to Michael Jordan to Kobe Bryant to. It could be done the same way with stand-up comedy, because you did have Richard Pryor, then Eddie Murphy, then, right? So here we go. And I said, okay, I need to take a page out of Russell's book. As much as Russell knew about hip hop and this, that, and the other, right, on the underground, he met a guy named Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
I need to find me a Rick Rubin. I need to go to Los Angeles and bring Def Comedy Jam back, but under my thing. So let's create Laugh Mob. Laugh and Mob, family of comedy, not people per se, not management or nothing, but just a team of cats that got great ideas who nobody else is helping them get to where they need to be going. Okay.
A movement.
So Mob is nothing more than more of Bob's best.
Cocky shit, Bob. Cocky shit, Bob.
That's
it.
That's what my goal is. So what we did was I hooked up with this brother, Arthur Spivak, who was managing Paul Reiser for a while. He had a show called Mad About You. He had retired. Red Grant turned me on to him. I said, maybe that's the guy that I can mess with. I told him what I was looking to do, and he said, wow. I gave him this plan. I said, what I really want to do is I want to shoot individuals who I identify who haven't had their own half-hour or 30-minute specials. But at the same time, they need good footage, because what they do is after their show, they go out in the hallway and sell their DVDs, and either the DVD has past performances that you saw already, or somebody holding the camera like that, right? So I said, let's find us place and shoot these guys. So I identified a few people. We went down to Philadelphia and we shot them. And a couple of them actually made Showtime specials. Mark Vieira, Red Grant, Rudy Rush, and Roz G, right? Had their own Showtime specials based off of what we shot. Then we had all these hours of audio. Jamal and Carlos, they send me something. They say, take a look at this. We had been talking about taking the audio that told stories that was in enough length time where you can do exactly what you just said. No different than a music video, making a comedy video. Exactly. We did one with Tony Baker, featuring Tony Baker, who now every time I turn on the TV, he's on that doggone Spectrum commercial, right? Tony Baker was the lead to a Red Grant joke called Fruit Loops. Okay, we put it on YouTube. World Star picked it up. Millions and millions, 60, 70 million views on one. Sharing it, another 40 million. Right? Bang, bang, bam. This is crazy. We come back with another joke from those tapings with Roz G called Ho's Resume. The star of that is Tiffany Haddish. Okay? 50 million, 80 million, bam, bam, bam. So now what happens? The networks start calling. Okay, so we went from YouTube to True TV, but we had to water them down some. You know what I mean? So I mean, it is whatever it is. But what we did was we put a concept out there. Some people say it's a little like Drunk History or whatever. It didn't make a difference. Kevin Hart did it with the kid from the New Edition.
Woody.
Yeah, you know, everybody know what that was, but it was the genius of how our stuff was shot. You know what I mean? So now I'm searching with the pandemic and stuff. Now I'm looking for a new network.
I just want to say that was the first writing job. Like I wrote on the pilot for that. That was my first writing job that you gave me. I appreciate that so much because it allowed me to be on the set. I'm on the set and they like, we need another line. I got experience that I never thought I would be able to get. Like it was just kind of like, here you go. Yeah. Come and you said when you got the show, you was like, yo, I'm gonna bring you on, have you here, help me, and you did all of that. So
I know you absorbed that shit like a sponge.
Oh, Marshall. I did. It was a great experience, and it was one that I can say that I was in Hollywood on the set, damn near as when and there wasn't no titles there. But I was like the head writer, you know what I mean? Like I was there, right there in the mix of everything. So it was the best.
I'm gonna say this right here. You know, you are a dope writer, man. You're a dope comedian. You're a dope fucking writer, and you the future of where this shit is getting ready to go in the next 2 or 3 years. Man.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate that.
That's why it's an honor for me. I don't look at you as a co-host on this, man. I look this as a fucking partnership, man, because. As I look to take this to heights, I look at you being right there to help me make that happen, man.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Brilliant writing. Bob, I know you could attest to this brother right here. I know you already know, which leads us into what you're doing over at the Apollo with the Apollo Honors, which leads us. You see that segue, right? You saw that segue, Bob? You saw that segue?
Throw it by the rim. I'll catch it.
Oh, Baba. Oh. Yeah. So, Bob, man, you doing so many things, man. The laugh track's beautiful, which is a great comeback, man. That's making the playoffs again right after the finals. You know, we talked about Def Jam, we talked about laugh tracks and everything in between. You ain't stopping, man. You still taking it like it's 20 years earlier with what's going on at the Apollo Honors and stuff. And the shout out that you gave this brother was unbelievable. Let's talk about that.
Thank you for that too.
All right, we could talk about that, but can I just finish this one piece this one piece leads to the Apollo.
Okay.
This is the Look at God segment. Okay. This is, and you're gonna, all right. One night, I'm home. Now, I was building the Laugh Mob brand. People actually thought I had moved to LA, right? I still have sick parents back home. I'm on this mission to build this Laugh Mob brand. But are y'all there?
Yeah, we here. We listen.
Y'all are so attentive.
Yeah, we
listen.
listen.
Y'all look like cardboard. The cardboard
like we froze.
Oh, man, this episode is to give you your fucking roses, man.
All right, so listen. All right, so okay. All right.
Bob, I've been fucking with you for years, but I'm a fan, man. You forget this shit, man.
I appreciate it.
We holler on the phone and we do business, but I'm a fucking fan, man. Real steel sharpens steel, man.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going back and forth to LA, but I got the Comedy Store on fleek. If they do whatever, I got it lit. The Comedy Store, right? I decided that I was going to if I could get in the Comedy Store, it was going to change things around, because one of the things I wasn't feeling about LA is the comedians from all over the country who I knew couldn't get no shine out there unless somebody knew them, or, I mean, it was like really, really crazy.
Yes.
So I created my own space, which was the Comedy Store. So now I'm home on this. Every 3 weeks, I'm going back and forth. So now my phone is ringing off the hook, and it's 3-hour time difference. So this is all happening at 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning. And I wake up, and then there's a newspaper clipping that my DJ had sent me. Somebody had gotten shot at the Comedy Store. Hours on the same night as my show, but hours later. Had nothing to do with what we were doing.
Oh, okay.
But obviously they was looking
But they
for
tying
a way,
this shit together,
they
right?
was looking
right.
for a way to out us, you know, obviously. So I'm not even there, but I was kind of like on my way out of LA because it was 5 years and I had already like, I could, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So now everybody thinks I'm gonna be upset about it. I'm cool. Now I'm back home. I get a call from my man Brett Wright. Brett, shout out to Brett. Brett is from the Uptown Records. I'm at Def Jam. Brett's from Jersey and Uptown Records. So Brett is telling me that the Apollo is trying to bring their whole comedy profile back. And they're talking about all these different celebrity names and this, that, and the other to do it. And Brett's like, forget about that. Y'all need Bob Sumner. Right? So they hit me and asked me if I'm interested. Now, remember, I started my life at the Apollo. Okay? So I can't believe this is happening. So to make a long story short, I went from the world famous comedy store in Los Angeles
right
to the world famous
Apollo Theater.
Yeah.
So the name of this segment was Look at God.
Yeah, for real. For real. That's it. That's a door in the window right there.
Hey. You catch it? You catch it?
Yeah.
Hey, so now it's become a situation that leads to what you guys saw on Friday night. Thank you for that. All right. Nobody saw that coming, but Dwight and I. We had been working on it since the pandemic because we have to keep the comedy bug going so people can see what we've been doing and what we're planning to do. So that's why I'm saying, like, I had to like push everything, like even like all of the comedians that I had booked, scheduled, like I can't even, I gotta reshuffle the deck because the narrative, and this is what I was telling Kareem on his page, the narrative has changed since March 2020 with stand-up comedy. Like, unless you're talking from a point of view of your personal life, that's the only material that should stick pre-pandemic. Other than that, you need to have another 20 to an hour set up. So how do I know to book you unless you set up a showcase for me somewhere? Because I have to go to my original formula. You follow me? So that's where I'm at right now. Gotcha. When the floodgates open up, I got a lot of things that I'm planning to do. You know what I mean? But I have to treat this thing like it's 1991 because there's a lot of stand-ups like, say you, Rob Stapleton, okay? You're so groomed and seasoned now, you're who Bernie was during the Def Jam. Bernie had been in the game. He just didn't have that vehicle to really put himself out there. So now you're headlining while I have like a little Brandon Reeves or somebody, you know, the little young kids that's real hungry, Nico
on
White.
Come up.
These guys. So it's a mix and a match to what I do, you know, and then this guy right here, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it is what it is. I do know that the next generation, just watch how I do, because I always considered myself to be the Jerry West of comedy.
That's the logo. That's the logo.
No, not only that, he builds squads. He drafted, he knew that he was gonna get a sign and trade with this 17-year-old kid out of Philadelphia. He knew it. Get out of here, Vladdy. Kobe's coming.
Brought Kobe in right behind that. Yep. All
right. He knew that he was going to go to Memphis and go to Golden State. He built those programs. You know?
Yeah.
So that's how I consider myself in stand-up. Everybody can do what they do, but I just be giving up leftovers. That's how I feel. It's all leftovers. I mean, I be putting people out. That's why I don't like to talk about people as much as I used to, because again, like I tell you, they pull a Thanksgiving heist on me. You know what I mean? The pilgrims and all of that. You know what I mean? They be taking my land. You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. I hope that you guys are enjoying what I'm bringing to you, because
Bob, it's the realness, man. It's
man.
Bob.
That's
you
who
have
I am,
fucking
man.
receipts. You have
Mhm.
receipts for everything that you said, man. There are receipts to this. Believe me, if I wasn't standing by what you were saying, I would have been cutting you off every 20 seconds, redirecting this shit.
I be compared to people. I be compared to people who I'd be like, wow, okay. Listen, when I was building Laugh Mob here, like when I came back here, okay, so this is besides the Apollo, just bringing that whole Laugh Mob movement back here, I decided that I was going to do a showcase at this place called 78 Lounge. And that's when I started seeing like the CJ Cracks guys and stuff like that. Like I kind of knew that things could be bubbling over here,
Right.
you know. And I just feel as though this restart is going to be something serious on my end. On my end.
No, I can feel it, man. I know just when me and you were about to work together, we had the stoppage. You know what I mean? So we get ready to pass that baton and pick up right from where we left off before. And I'm going to be with the Jamaica team, and we going to win that race. we going to win that motherfucking race. Yeah. I'm looking forward. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Rob Stapleton Effect, man. Our special guest tonight was my man, Mr. Bob Sumner. I'm going to say like this. Bob Sumner, this episode, me and Marshall had you on. We respect you. We love you. You gave, I'm not going to say, see, a lot of people get this shit crossed by thinking that Bob thinks that he wrote people's material. Bob ain't write a motherfucking joke for an artist. He just helps you skip the fucking line.
Right. Can I give you one more thing that I meant to say it when I was closing?
Let's do it.
Here's something. Oh, and I was saying, you know, I was talking about the Apollo, but I also wanted to talk about when I did come back, when I mentioned CJ's name. I had come back here to build, you know, the Laugh Mob on this end, what's happening here in New York area, right? So I had remembered that I had gone, like I'm always, even if I don't have a show at the time, I would still do showcases. And if anybody around the country want me to headline their weekend, right, I'll come in and they could set up a showcase. You guys could do it too at your spots. I would love to do it with you guys, to set up a showcase at your spot and get all of them guys to come in. If you get 10 of them to give me 10 minutes a piece, something like that, and we could make that happen. But I had did a showcase at Caroline's, okay? And this is when I had Damon Rosier on it. Mm-hmm. I had Big Rome on it. Rest in peace to both of those guys.
To both of those brothers.
Yeah.
Right? I had Smokey. I had Capone on it, right? Mm-hmm. These was these guys who I was trying to see, you know, what can possibly happen for them, right? I had also I made a call down to Virginia because I had showcased down there, and a friend of mine from Jersey who lived down there had a co-worker of his who was doing stand-up. So he asked me if I could, this guy told him that Bob Sumner was going to be there, and he knew me and stuff. Can I put him on the showcase, right? So I put the guy on the showcase, and I thought he had it, okay? That U2 guy, right? I thought that he had it. So I called my boy, and I said, I really like your guy, this, that, and the other. And he was like, B, whatever you can do to help him, all good, right? And I'm like, most definitely. So that showcase at the Carolines, I had him come up, put him on, and I had invited some agents out, you know, to look at this talent, this, that, and the other. This one agent who we invited really took to the kid, right? Liked him a lot and said that he could get him an audition for SNL.
We know who the fuck that is.
Exactly
we know who that is. Jay Farrow in the motherfucking building.
That, I mean, and it was just interesting to see how you can bring the Thanksgiving to some, you know, you could bring Plymouth Rock. You know, it was that same story. You know, I felt like the Indian who just gave the land away. You know what I'm saying?
Like I said, happens. Bob, you help so many motherfuckers skip the line, man.
It happens, man. And I mean, even when I look at some of the executives in the business, I be hearing them tell my story. I be like, I mean, it's like, wow, man. I mean, y'all got clubhouses about my stuff. Like, it's really like crazy to me. It's like, crazy. I love it. It's flattering, man. It's flattering, but at the same time, I'm taking notes.
That's that elephant mentality. You never forget. Never forget. Definitely. Never forget.
Thanks again, Rob. Listen, you guys, family, man.
Oh, man, Bob, nothing but love, man. Thank you for coming up here. Thank you for being uncandid. Thank you for keeping it real. Thank you for being informative. That's what this podcast, good luck with your podcast. But on the Rob Stapleton Effect, that's what this is about, man. Honoring our people and getting right to it.
Right, and I came on this episode really to listen. The more I talk, the less I'm listening to you. And on this, so that's why I came on this episode to chill. Yep. And I can't wait till we get that work out. We got that work coming out.
And look out for the Apollo Comedy Club concert series, because we're gonna stay with the Apollo Comedy Club, but the best of the club go into the main room with our big acts.
Crazy. Ooh. Crazy. I can see it in your eyes, Bob. I can see it in your eyes.
Hey, well, right now, I can let you know that, I mean, I'm just waiting to figure all of this out, because I had a conversation with Rich Murphy, and we had been talking about it for a while, but we were waiting for everything to really, but I have to do a tribute to Charlie. I have to do a tribute to Charlie, and I have to do a tribute to Mr. Gregory. Those are two of the things that I really want to do in the main room, as well as do some, I could easily do a Rob Stapleton and Friends, or whatever the case may be. Yes, Jay, I want to have fun while the opportunity is there, and you guys are allowing me to smell the roses.
Yeah, that's what it's about. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Rob Stapleton Effect. My co-host, Marshall Brandon, our special guest, Mr. Bob Sumner. Bob, love you, brother. Thank you so much for joining us, man. Thank you, man. Love you, bud. Oh, man. Be safe out there, Bob. Be safe. Dang.